So this is a creepypasta from a troll pasta website called Super Mario Bros. 3 Tranfer. Not transfer, Tranfer. Back in the day, I was a fan of the old school Nintendo games such as Contra, Super Mario Bros. And Life Force. I played the games constantly, but as we all do, I grew up to do better things other than play video games. One spring morning in 2011, I decided that I wanted to relive my childhood by bringing up my old Nintendo from my basement. This turned out to be a bad idea. It was too dark down there, and I was tired, so I just went to bed, deciding I'd play it tomorrow. So you didn't get it from the basement that night, because just looking at the basement made him exhausted, apparently. I woke up the next morning and went to find nearly a foot of water in the basement. I looked outside and there was dirt everywhere. I turned the TV on and the newscaster was saying that this was the storm of the century. Rain had poured down all night. I then went down to drain my basement of all the water. After that annoyance was over, I searched for my Nintendo. I eventually found it and it was fine, just above where the water was, but the games weren't, they were soaked. I dried the games off and went upstairs. I tried the games in my Nintendo. Obviously, they didn't work. I didn't have much time to play around with them since I had a full-time job. So I called my friend Ted. Ted was my old college buddy. He didn't have a job because he was only interested in computer hacking/modding and was just recently laid off. I asked him if he could fix my Nintendo games for me. That sounds legit. I would have just bought new ones, but I was saving up to buy a wedding ring to propose to my girlfriend, who was currently out of town. He owed me a favour anyway. He said sure, but he didn't say it normally. It was kind of dark and mumbled. He said sure, dark and mumbled. I hung up the phone. On the way to work, I dropped by Ted's. He opened the door with colourless eyes and a flushed face. I asked him if he was okay, and he answered the explanation that he was working on some big project all night to get this high-paying job that he recently showed me. I gave him the box of games that included Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3, Contra, Life Force, Jaws, and a few others. He said he'd have them done by tomorrow, and he started to turn around and close the door. Before the door was closed all the way, I could have sworn I saw him smirk on the right side of his face. I ignored it and went to work. I picked them up the next day. As he gave the box to me, I said thanks for the work. He replied with "You're welcome" in a melodic and dark voice. "You're welcome" in a melodic and dark voice with a small smile. Again, I ignored it and drove home to play my functional Nintendo games. It was 7 o'clock and the sun was going down as I plugged in my system. I played most of my games the next few hours, rolling in my old childhood nostalgia. They played perfectly, except for the occasional blue screen coming from a bad pin connection in my non-top-loader Nintendo. They were as fun now as they were back then. It was around midnight when I started to get tired and checked the rest of my games to see if I'd missed any. Idiot! How could I have missed Super Mario Bros. 3? I pushed the game into the Nintendo. The game started up. The curtains revealing the logo opened, and instead of a happy yellowish background, it was all black. There were blunt sound effects for each time you pushed a button instead of a bling, all of which were without background music. The Koopas on the ground were red-skinned and black-shelled. Mario and Luigi were the same colours. I pushed start and one-player mode, and I could have sworn that right before the screen revealing the first world appeared, Bowser's face appeared. On World 1 it wasn't the same. Actually, it looked like World 8. The first level was named You. As I started the level, eerie music that sounded similar to the original music if it were edited, only to be slow and depressing. The level itself was a swarm of tanks like in the original World 8 from the normal game. But it wasn't possible to beat. There was no end. I just played until I died. I was then forced onto the next level, titled R. As soon as the level opened, you fell in a pit, hearing a faint scream, 8-bit and all crackly. I then spawned on the world map and realised the 6 remaining levels and my 6 remaining lives. There was one of the hands from the original game at the end of the 8 levels instead of the 5 at the middle of the world. As I played the remaining non-winnable levels, I got to the last level with 1 life left. It was called Infected. Wait, the levels had chronological names. It spelled out, "You are cursed. Now prepare to be infected." Then I entered the final level. I died at the last level and had 0 lives. I was expecting a game over screen as usual, but instead I went to the world screen. I went over to the hand. The hand dragged my down. The game suddenly crashed and the screen was black. Evil Mario by Game Scanner. Mario the Devil God added by the Devil God. Then a loud glass crackling sound came to my right. It was my actual window. It wasn't broken, it was just cracked. My heart was pounding. I raced to the door. It slammed shut and I wasn't able to get it open. The light suddenly went out. Only the cracked moon from the window shone in on the room. The door rattled. My head was shaking. I couldn't take it. I collapsed, unconscious. I awoke on the floor the next morning. The door was on the floor as well. The hinges were bent off. My girlfriend rushed into the room and asked me what had happened and if I was all right. I said later and immediately rushed off to see Ted. What the hell was his problem? That game. Why? Why would he do this? I reached his house and noticed that it was surrounded by the police. I got there just in time to see the paramedics bringing a stretcher out of the house. I went up to the stretcher to see a cut, broken, abused version of Ted. There was a wicked, messed up burn mark on his right hand. He said one thing. He said it was transferred successfully, and he died right there. I was so confused. As I started to walk off, I felt a painful jolt. I looked at my right hand. There was the pentagram, the mark of the devil. I looked up slowly and smiled. I then started from home. So that was kind of really awful. It was just on the cusp between being a passable video game creepypasta and just being absolutely awful, which is the reason why it's in this area of trollpasta, trying to be good when it sucks enough to be a troll. But I honestly don't think this person wrote this trying to be a troll. I just don't think they're a very good writer and they just failed badly at doing this successfully. And it wasn't creepy at all and it barely made sense. I had to replace some of the words because they just didn't make sense at all the way they were written, and it just wasn't very good. So that's all from me right now. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.